Maryland, Dorchester County, 1820s, East Coast of the United States. Stop for a second. Close your eyes. Imagine the air. It is not the air you breathe today. The air here is hot soup. It is dense. It is humid. It sticks to the skin like a sin that won't wash off with soap and water. It smells of stagnant swamp, where still water hides things that bite. It smells of tobacco drying in old wooden sheds. But, above all, it smells of fear, an ancient ancestral fear that impregnates the soil like the blood of past generations. We are at the Brodess Farm, a land of water and shadows. Here, nature is beautiful, but it is cruel. Weeping willows sway in the wind, but do not be fooled by the beauty. Pay attention to the sound. It isn't the song of birds that dominates the soundscape. It is the clinking, clank, 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 the metallic, rhythmic, constant sound. Shackles banging against packed earth, chains dragging on the ankles of men who were once kings in another land. It is the sound of property, the sound of human beings reduced 2 lines in a ledger, classified between cattle and tools. Araminta Ross. They call her Minty, a child 5 or 6 years old, small for her age, malnourished, skinny, with scraped knees and bare feet that have never known a shoe. But look at her face. Look at the eyes. They are black, deep, almost unfathomable. They don't blink with the frequency of a normal child. These are eyes that absorb light. Eyes of someone born knowing the world is a dangerous place. She is sitting on the porch of the big house. Her task is not to play. Her task is to watch. She needs to watch the white mistress's baby while he sleeps in the crib. The rules are simple and brutal. If the baby cries, Minty gets beaten. If the baby wakes up, Minty gets beaten. If Minty falls asleep, Minty bleeds. She observes an object hanging near the kitchen door, a braided leather whip, the tip worn from use. An inanimate object. But for her, it is a living monster, a serpent that sleeps on the wall and bites on the back. She learned early the fundamental lesson of slavery, the lesson that breaks the soul before breaking the body. Your body is not yours. Your pain does not matter. Your scream is irrelevant to the universe around you. Her mother, Rit, is the force of nature, trying to keep the family together, cooking, cleaning, praying softly. Her father, Ben, is the man who teaches the secrets of the forest. He teaches Minty to read, not books, that is forbidden and punished with death or mutilation. He teaches her to read the world, how to read the bark of trees, how to know if it will rain by the flight of birds, how to walk without making noise on the dry leaves of October. Lessons that seem innocent, but that soon will be the only difference between living and dying hanging from an oak tree. Minty watches her brothers being sold. It isn't a dramatic soap opera event with sad violins. It is a commercial transaction, dry, bureaucratic. A white man arrives on horseback, sweating, smelling of cheap whiskey. He examines Minty's brother's teeth as if they were horses, squeezes the muscles of their arms, discusses the price with Mr. Brodess as if buying a sack of flour or a new plow. And then the brother is gone, tied behind a wagon, disappearing into the road dust. The cry of the mother, Rit, pierces the night. The howl of a wolf that lost her cub. But the wagon doesn't stop. The world doesn't stop. The sun rises the next day as if nothing happened, and Minty, small, silent, carves that scene into the bone of her memory. This is not the world, she thinks, feeling a cold fire in her stomach. This is hell, and I am getting out of here. Time passes. The girl grows. The body stretches. Muscles harden from forced labor in the fields. But the rebellion grows faster than the body. Araminta is now a teenager. Strong. She hauls timber like an ox. She rows boats in frozen swamps to check muskrat traps. A common day. A dry goods store at the Bucktown crossroads. The smell of brown sugar, kerosene, and cheap cotton fabric. Enslaved people and poor whites mix there. An enslaved ma, a young boy from another farm, with the desperate look of a cornered animal, enters the store without permission. He wants to run. His overseer enters right behind him, furious, red, veins popping in his neck. Hold him. Hold that Negro. The boy runs for the door. Minty is there. She doesn't think. Instinct speaks before logic. She puts herself in the doorway. She blocks the exit with her own body. She opens her arms. She has no weapons, only presence, only audacity. This gives the boy the precious seconds he needs. He runs. He escapes into the forest. But the overseer, his hate, needs a target. He lost his prey. But he sees Minty standing there, defiant, immobile. He grabs the first object he sees on the counter. A scale weight, a solid metal weight, used to weigh grain. 2 pounds of cast iron with sharp edges. He throws it with all the force of accumulated hate he aims to kill. The weight cuts the air with a low, deadly hum. Thump. The sound is horrible. Iron against skull. There is no scream, only the sound of bone breaking. The impact caves in Minty's forehead. The bone snaps inward, pressing against the frontal lobe. Hot blood spurts instantly, thick and dark, blinding her eyes, entering her mouth. The taste of copper. The world spins. The store shelves melt into strange colors. The floor rises fast to meet her. Darkness, total, absolute. Weeks in a coma. She lies on a cot of dirty straw in her mother's cabin. Fever. Infection. The hole in her head pulses. The Famona Edwardi Bruges brings buyers to see her, trying to recover some investment. They look at the unconscious girl, her head deformed and bandaged with rags. She is broken, Brades says, kicking the leg of the bed, frustrated. Not worth a counterfeit penny. He tries to sell her 4 pennies. No one wants her. She is considered damaged goods, a broken piece of machinery useless for work. But in the dark of the coma, something extraordinary is happening. The brain injury changed the physical and spiritual architecture of her mind. Where there should be cerebral silence, there is noise. Where there should be emptiness, there is light. She begins to have dreams, not common, foggy dreams, visions, vivid, colorful, hyperreal. She sees rivers of blood dividing the earth. She sees warrior angels flying over cotton fields. She sees lines on the map glowing in gold. And she hears the voice of God. Not like a soft church whisper, but like thunder, like a direct military command. Prepare yourself! She wakes up. The headache never goes away. For the rest of her life, until her last breath, she will suffer stabbing pains. And something new emerges. Temporal narcolepsy, blackouts, In the middle of a sentence, in the middle of work, she simply falls asleep. The body shuts down like a switch, but the mind travels to other planes, seeing the future, seeing danger. To others, she is the sick, half-crazy slave. To history, she just became the prophet. The iron weight didn't kill the girl. It killed the fear. The one who rose from that cot was no longer little Araminta. It was Harriet, God's general. Stop and look at your life right now. If you have ever felt that life hit you so hard, physically or emotionally, that it seemed impossible to get up, if you carry a scar, visible on the body or invisible on the soul, that people used to say you were broken, defective, or incapable, but something inside you, a stubborn and irrational voice deep down, refused to fade. Smash the like button. Now, do it as an act of defiance. Show the world and the algorithm that we are made of unbreakable material. Today, we tell the story of the woman who used her mortal wound as a compass to save a nation. The siege tightens Mr. Brogi's dice. Widow Brogi's takes control of the property. She is different from her husband. She is cold, mathematical, calculating. She doesn't see people with names and stories. She sees assets to liquidate debts. The farm is bankrupt. The solution is obvious and terrible on her spreadsheet. Sell the stock. Sell the slaves. Harriet hears the whispers behind the closed doors of the big house while sweeping the floor. She has a husband now, John Tubman, a free black man, a man born with the right to come and go, but who chose to stay there for her. But their love is limited by the brutal law of the time. She is property. He is a citizen, second class, but a citizen. Her womb belongs to the owner. Her children would belong to the owner. If she is sold, the marriage ends at the farm fence, and then comes the fatal news, carried by the wind of gossip. The widow is negotiating with slave traders from Georgia, the Deep South. Understand the geographical and psychological weight of this. Being a slave in Maryland is hell. Being sold to the Deep South, the cotton and sugarcane plantations of Mississippi and Louisiana, is the ninth circle of hell. There, the heat kills in 3 years. There, the life expectancy of an enslaved person on cane plantations is minimal. There, the whip doesn't educate. It skins the flesh to the bone. No one returns from the Deep South. It is a slow, painful, and anonymous death sentence. Harriet feels the scar on her forehead pulse. God speaks to her again. A clear vision. She sees a line on the ground. On one side, slavery and death in the cotton. On the other, the unknown, the dark forest, the possibility of being eaten by dogs, or freedom. She tries to convince her brothers, let's run. I know the way. God showed me. They feel fear. The paralyzing fear of the hound, the fear of torture if caught. They give up. They go back to the slave quarters. She goes to her husband, John, the man who should protect her. Call me with me, John. Let's go north. He looks at her with contempt and fear. He is comfortable in his small freedom. He is afraid of losing the little he has because of his wife's madness. You're crazy, Harriet. You'll die in the swamp. Forget it, Harriet insists. And then the final betrayal. John says, if you try to run, I will tell the overseer. I will report you. The sentence hits harder than the iron weight. The betrayal of a loved one hurts more than the enemy's whip. In that moment, Harriet realizes she is totally, cosmically alone. but she makes the decision that separates slaves from legends. She looks at the moon. There are two things I've got a right to: liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other. No one will take me alive to the South. She decides she prefers a free corpse to a living, chained body. She walks through the field in the twilight. She sings softly, not to alert the guards. An old spirica, a code. Goodbye, I'm going to leave you. Good morning to the promised land, ... double quote. She cannot say goodbye to her mother, it would be too dangerous. The mother would cry, the mother would scream. The music is the farewell. Her mother hears from afar, feels a tightness in her chest, but doesn't understand that she will never see her daughter as a slave again. That night, Harriet disappears into the darkness of the forest. Araminta Ros died. The ghost was born. It is night, no moon. Harriet enters the dense Choptang forest. She has no map. She has no metal compass in her pocket. She has no money. She has the North Star shining in the cold autumn sky. And she has the lessons of her father. Ben moss grows on the north side of trees. Follow the moss. Follow the water that runs north. That is her cutting-edge technology. The journey is not a walk in the park. It is 90 miles, about 145 kilometers, to the Pennsylvania border. On foot, alone. Think of the sound. The forest at night is loud. Every dry branch that breaks underfoot sounds like a cannon shot in the deadly silence. Her heart beats in her throat the whole time, a frantic drum. Thump, 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 thump. The enemies are real, human, and animal. The patrollers, bounty hunters on horseback, patrolling roads with lanterns, men armed with double-barreled shotguns and long whips, and the worst nightmare of any fugitive. The dogs, bloodhounds. Dogs trained to smell fear and blood. Harriet hears the barking in the distance, echoing in the valley, the primal sound of the hunt. A woo. What does she do? Survival instinct takes over. She enters the water. Freezing November rivers, black, cold water, full of slime. She goes in up to her neck. Why? Because water washes away the scent. The dogs lose the trail in the water. She stays submerged for hours, shivering with hypothermia, teeth chattering, hidden among sharp reeds, while men pass on horseback yards away, smoking cigars and laughing. She holds her breath until her lungs burn. Hunger is a constant companion. She eats roots she learned to identify. She eats raw, sour fruit. She steals food from pig troughs on isolated farms, competing with the animals. She sleeps in holes in the ground, covered with wet leaves, like a hibernating wild animal. And then narcolepsy strikes. At the most critical moment, in the middle of the escape, the brain shuts down. The short circuit from the old blow. She falls, sleeps deeply in the midst of danger, vulnerable to any predator. But it is in this sleep that the magic happens. God sends the maps, aerial visions. Turned left at the crooked creek. Do not go to the road. There are men waiting at the bridge. Wait for food behind the red barn. When she wakes up, she doesn't question. Human logic would say, go by the fast road. Faith says, go by the difficult swamp. She goes by the swamp. Days turn into weeks. Her shoe falls apart, soles torn. Her feet bleed, leaving red trails in the morning frost. But then, ... The air changes. The landscape changes. The imaginary line on the ground. The Mason-Dixon line. The Pennsylvania border. The Free State. She takes a step, and then another. She stops. She looks at her own hands under the morning sunlight. They look the same. The same dark skin, the same work scars, but everything is different. Gravity seems different. Harriet described this moment with a poetry no writer could invent. I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. There was such a glory over everything. ... The sun came like gold through the trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven. She is free. The air fills her lungs without the weight of fear. She arrives in Philadelphia, a big, noisy city full of free people. She gets work in hotels and kitchens. She cleans houses. She earns her own money. The coins jingle in her pocket, and they belong to her. She buys her own clothes. She walks down the street and looks white people in the eye without being whipped. It should be the happy ending. It should be heaven on earth. But Harriet feels a hole in her chest, an existential vacuum. She sleeps in a warm bed, but her mind travels to her mother sleeping on the cold cabin floor. She eats fresh bread with butter, but thinks of her brothers eating corn scraps. Solitary freedom tastes like ashes in her mouth. She says, I was a stranger in a strange land. My home was down there in the South. My brothers, my mother, my father, they were there, and I decided, I will not be free alone. The warrior decides to return to the battlefield. Most people, 99% of them, when they escape hell, run far away and never look back. It is basic survival instinct. I saved myself. Too bad for those who stayed. But there are rare people. The 1%, people who escape, reach the top, breathe the clean air, ... and then turn around and go back down into the darkness to get those left behind. If you are the type of person who doesn't leave your own behind, if you carry your team, your family, your friends on your back when they can't walk, ... Subscribe to this channel now. Here, we don't just celebrate success. We celebrate loyalty. Welcome to the Resistant. The United States Congress passes the Fugitive Slave Act. The game changes drastically. Now, the North is no longer safe. The law says any enslaved person found in the North, even in free states like New York or Pennsylvania, can be captured and returned to the South. Ordinary citizens are forced to help in the capture. Judges make more money if they condemn someone to slavery $10 than if they set them free $5. It is a legalized national manhunt. The map of freedom has changed. Now, freedom is no longer the U.S. North. Freedom is Canada, the eternal winter, the land of Queen Victoria. Harriet is not intimidated. She begins the expeditions. She returns to Maryland. Once, twice, 3 times, 19 times over a decade. She becomes a ghost, an urban legend. Slave owners don't know who she is. They think it is a militant white abolitionist man. They begin to call this mysterious figure Moses. Moses is coming down and stealing our cattle. Her head is worth gold. Rewards are offered. $12,000. Then rumors of $40,000, equivalent to millions today. Wanted posters with vague descriptions are nailed to every tree in every police station. And the tracker enters the scene. Let's personify evil. Professional bounty hunters. Cruel, experienced men who live to track humans. They use ferocious dogs. They know the swamp They are obsessed with catching Moses. But Harriet is smarter. She is a natural strategist. She develops special ops tactics worthy of modern forces. Winter operations. She travels only in winter. Why? Nights are longer, more darkness to move. People stay indoors because of the cold. The Saturday night tactic. She executes escapes exclusively on Saturday night. Why? Because slave owners can only place the escape ad in newspapers on Monday morning. Sunday print shops are closed. This gives her a mathematical advantage of 36 to 48 hours before the news spreads via telegraph. Counterflow. Sometimes, when hunters close the circle to the north, she travels south towards the danger to confuse the trail before circling back. The Christmas rescue. In an audacious mission, she rescues her brothers on Christmas while the whites are partying, drunk, inside the houses. She hides her brothers in a corn crib, feeding them through the cracks, right under the overseer's noses. Master disguises. In a town, she sees a former master coming towards her on the street. If he recognizes her, she dies. She doesn't run. Running draws attention. She carries 2 live chickens by the legs. She releases the strings. The chickens start flapping wings and running. She runs after the chickens, screaming and laughing like a senile old lady trying to catch her dinner. The master passes her, loves Zachi, the crazy old woman, and goes on his way. Chaos is the best disguise. But the most brutal tactic, the one that defines her leadership, is the revolver. Harriet carries a 6-shot revolver, not just to defend herself from hunters, but to maintain the discipline of the passengers. Imagine the high-tension scene. A group of 10 fugitives. Torrential rain. They have been walking for days in the swamp, hallucinating hunger, feet raw, full of blood and pus. Babies crying. She uses drops of opium laudanum to make the babies sleep and not alert the guards. A man, one of the fugitives, breaks psychologically. Fear overcomes him. He sits in the mud. He cries, "I can't take it anymore. It's too cold. I'm hungry. I'm going back. I'll turn myself in to the master and ask for forgiveness. He'll whip me, but at least I'll be dry." If this man goes back, he will be tortured. Under torture, he will talk. He will give up the secret route. He will give up the location of the station's safe houses. He will kill Harriet and all future groups. The entire mission is at risk. Harriet draws the revolver. She points the cold barrel at the man's head. Her hand doesn't shake. Her face, lit by lightning, is not that of a gentle savior. It is that of a general at war. Her voice is steel. "Get up! I can't, Moses!" She cocks the gun. Click! "You will live free, or you will die here in the mud. But you are not going back. Dead men tell no tales." The man looks into her eyes. He looks for hesitation. He finds none. He sees the absolute truth. She will pull the trigger to save the group. The fear of immediate death overcomes the fear of exhaustion. He gets up, he walks, he reaches Canada. Days later, breathing freedom, he thanks her for pointing that gun. True leadership sometimes demands terrible decisions to ensure the survival of the collective. She rescues her brothers. She returns to rescue her parents, Ben and Rit, now 70 years old. Imagine the logistics. Taken two frail elderly people through swamps and guarded forests. She builds a makeshift wagon with old wheels. She steals a horse. She improvises a carriage of freedom. She succeeds. She was never captured. She never lost a single passenger. As she herself said in her later years, I was conductor of the Underground Railroad for 8 years. And I can say what most conductors can't say. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger. The American Civil War explodes. The nation splits in half. Brother blood against brother blood. North Union versus South Confederates. The question of slavery will be settled at the point of a bayonet. Most freed black women go to work in hospitals, washing sheets stained with blood or cooking for soldiers. Harriet isn't the majority. Harriet goes to the battlefront. She goes down to South Carolina, occupied by the Union, the heart of darkness of slavery. The Union general, David Hunter, looks at that small black woman, missing teeth, wearing baggy clothes and a headscarf. He thinks she will be an excellent cook, but she starts talking. She talks about the terrain. She talks about the rivers. She talks about how the enslaved people on the plantations trust her. She sets up a spy network. She recruits local black men. They bring vital information where the Confederates keep ammunition, where the cotton stocks were monier, and, crucially, where they placed mines, powder kegs in the Combahee River. Harriet Tubman becomes the first woman to head a military intelligence operation in the U.S. June 1863. The Combahee River Raid, the most cinematic night of her life. 3 Union steam warships, armored and armed with cannons. 300 black soldiers of the 2nd South Carolina Regiment, and who is in tactical command alongside Colonel Montgomery, Harriet Tubman. She is on the deck of the lead ship, the John Adams. The wind hits her face, marked by time. Fog covers the river. She guides the pilot through the Confederate mines, her spies mapped there. Careful to the right. Submerged mine. Navigate by the sandbank. The ship passes unharmed. They reach the rice and cotton plantations. Harriet gives the signal. The steamboat whistle screams in the night. It is the sound of Judgment Day for the slave owners. It is the sound of the trumpet of Jericho for the enslaved. Chaos searches in fire. Soldiers disembark and set fire to the plantations, burn the mansions, destroy the enemy's food stocks. And then the biblical vision happens. From the miserable shacks, hundreds of people begin to run toward the riverbank. Women carrying babies on their hips, men carrying bundles of clothes on their heads, children dragging pigs by the ears, chickens flying. A woman runs carrying a pot of steaming rice, still hot, because hunger was so great she didn't want to lose her freedom dinner. It is the Exodus in real time. Overseers try to shoot, running with their shotguns, but the warships answer with machine guns and cannons. Power has changed hands. People reach the muddy bank. The boats are full. There is panic. They are afraid of being left behind. They cling to the boat. Harriet stands at the highest point of the ship. She opens her arms, the maternal and warrior figure, and she begins to sing, not in order, but a hymn. A hoarse, powerful voice that cuts through the noise of explosions and crying. Come along, come along. Don't be alarmed. Uncle Sam is rich enough to give you all a farm. Her voice calms the panic. They board orderly. That night, under her command, the Union lost no soldiers. That night, Harriet Tubman led a military attack that liberated over 750 enslaved people at once. The only woman in United States history to plan and lead an armed attack during the Civil War. She didn't just escape the system. She came back with an army and burned the system to the ground. The war ends in 1865. Slavery falls legally, but justice doesn't come fast. Harriet returns home to Auburn, New York. She served as a spy, nurse, general, and scout. But the U.S. government denies her war pension for decades. They cannot process that a black woman, illiterate and former slave, was vital to victory. She lives in poverty. She sells apple pies and vegetables on the street to survive. She cares for the poor and orphans in her small house, sharing the little she has. The irony is bitter. The woman who saves hundreds' lives on crime, but she doesn't stop. The fight just changed shape. Now she fights for the female vote, the suffrage movement. She takes stages in Washington and New York. Small, bent, old, alongside rich, educated white women. When Harriet speaks, the hall goes silent. She tells her stories. I saw men fighting and dying with bayonets in their chests so we could be free. You cannot stop now until women have a voice. A final scene of brutality and supreme courage. Harriet needs brain surgery. The old pain from that metal weight, from that afternoon in the store as a girl, still torments her. The pains are unbearable, preventing her from sleeping. She goes to Massachusetts General Hospital. The doctor says he needs to open her skull to relieve the pressure. She refuses anesthesia, maybe out of fear of losing control, maybe out of a habit of stoicism. She asks for only one thing, a revolver bullet. She wants to bite the lead, just as she saw soldiers do on the battlefields of the Civil War when they had legs amputated without morphine. She bites the bullet. The surgeon cuts her scalp and saws the skull bone. She endures. She doesn't scream. The woman is made of tempered steel and faith. The end of the line. Harriet is about 90 or 93 years old. No one knows the exact date of her birth, as slaves had no certificate. She lies in her bed in the home for the elderly black people she founded herself with donation money. The body is frail, skin and bone, but the eyes are still those of the general. Family and friends gather around the bed. They sing spiritual hymns. She looks at the window. Maybe, in these final moments, the final narcolepsy brings the sweetest visions. Maybe she sees the swamp without the dogs. Maybe she sees the river without the mines. Maybe she sees the thousands of faces, men, women, children, she took out of the darkness and brought to the light. She whispers her last words. It isn't an apology. It isn't a lament of pain. It is a biblical promise, calm and absolute. I go to prepare a place for you. The eyes close. The chest stops rising. Silence fills the room. There is no scream, only the wind outside shaking the trees that once hid her. Her legacy doesn't fit in school history books. It fits in the DNA of human freedom. They tried to break her with iron in childhood. She became indestructible. They tried to chain her to the ground with unjust laws. She turned the chains into ladders to the sky. They tried to hunt her like a wild animal. She became the greatest freedom hunter America has ever seen. She proved that one person, small, poor, sick, illiterate, female, and black in a world of white men, can bend the arc of history if she has enough faith and infinite courage. Now, the final question is for you. Who listened this far? What is your excuse today? Are you tired? She had narcolepsy, fainted from sleep, and walked in the frozen swamp at night. Are you afraid of failure? She had a millionaire reward on her head and voluntarily returned to the lion's den 19 times. Do you feel alone? She started alone against an empire and built an army. Look at your chains today. Fear, doubt, procrastination, the need for others' approval, give them a name, and then ... break them. Because Harriet Tubman didn't run, didn't bleed, and didn't fight so we could stand still complaining about life. Write in the comments now, as a solemn oath between you and her memory, I am not going back. Declare to the world that you only have one direction, forward and up. If this video lit a fire in your soul, share it. Make her story travel further than her feet could take. Freedom is not a gift. It is a daily conquest. See you in the promised land. Ouch.